If you haven't played Resident Evil 4 yet, then where the hell have you been? Originally intended to be a Gamecube exclusive like the remake of the first game and Zero, it didn't stay that way, finding its way onto the PlayStation 2 and PC before eventually bare-bonesing itself onto the iPhone, and in the definitive version that combined the graphical prowess of the Gamecube version and extra content of the PlayStation version, which found its way onto the Gamecube's successor, the unstoppable Wii. It's not just for waggling games, you can use the Gamecube pad too. You know how it is by now. A bunch of infected dudes, they want to kill you, and you don't have much ammunition to stop them. Eventually, after cutting up countless minions, you'll go up against the final boss, which has usually got a huge, glaringly obvious eye-shaped weak point. That's Resident Evil for you. Some people say that this is the best game on the GameCube. I don't know if I'd go that far, because Miss Samus Aran has a pretty good game. But I can say that it has some good things for you, stranger. The game opens with Leon S. Kennedy, one of the main characters from Resident Evil 2, being sent to Europe to rescue the President's daughter.
Don't you care about pretty young Sarah?
Help me, Daddy!
And investigate reports of weird shit happening. Apparently in the intermittent years, Leon was trained by presidential request to be a super-secret squirrel. At the time, this wasn't all that you'd expect from a Resident Evil video game. The focus on action, segregation of play into chapters, downplaying of puzzles, and huge outdoor open areas over the relative helplessness of the tight corridors and identikit facilities put you firmly in control. Gone are the auto-aim, pre-rendered backgrounds, and constant spinning, in-comes strategic targeting, and Falcon Punch! I can't play this shit, there's no auto-target. The combat is where you'll initially notice a difference. You feel more in control of proceedings, viewing from an over-the-shoulder perspective. Hitting an opponent in the head will do the most damage, but it won't necessarily kill the opponent, as these are still based on chance and the weapon used. Put simply, aim for the head and hope your weapon hits critical. If you're low on ammo or otherwise incapable of hitting an opponent's weakest point, then you can play around with a new combat adaptation. If you hit an enemy in the leg or body or wherever you put the laser, sometimes the enemy will stagger. During this short window, you'll be able to trigger a context-sensitive melee attack. The attack used depends on the character that you're using and for which direction you approach the enemy after shooting them. You'll be using Leon for the main campaign, but in the other modes that I will touch on later, you'll be having much more fun with some of the other characters' more interesting finishing blows. Bear with me for a moment. It's 2005, you have a GameCube. You've been playing the Resident Evil remake to death, Jill Valentine's heavily armed form is burned into the back of your eyes, you keep getting an overwhelming urge to investigate the forest zone situated in northwest Raccoon City. Chris isn't a steroid abuser yet, and you were so proud of yourself for beating the nemesis with a pistol. You've been following the production of Resident Evil 4 for years, from Leon fighting ghosts and dolls through the birth of Devil May Cry, and you even went and played the Gun Survivor series again to tire you over. Now Resident Evil 4 is out and you can't wait to play it with that new chainsaw controller. This is gonna rock! So here we are after some cutscenes about how Mr. America is here in Europe to clean house.
Oh, you crazy American. It's a direct order from the chief himself.
I am vaguely European. I hate America with all of my heart.
I'm counting on you guys.
They're gonna die, aren't they? After entering this house, you're introduced to the game's main enemy. They're totally not a zombie Gyarados. Why isn't it a zombie? Well, they can run. They can follow you through doors and up ladders. They can hit you with ranged attacks without puking. They are regular Joes being controlled by a new parasite called Las Plagas, which has been administered to them by a cult known as Los Illuminados. Obviously the pigs that were with you get owned while you were busy and your government contact isn't going to let you go home just yet. Off you go then. Goodbye. You can't rest once these guys are out of the way though, because after following the path, dodging some bear traps and freeing a wolf, you'll find yourself in a village full of Gyarados, and the game's first swarm battle takes place. This is light compared to the one that happens in the house later, but it's rough as hell when you're just getting used to the controls and new playstyle. Then there are all the other monsters that come with traditional one-shot moves later on in the game. Leon himself gets infected with Las Plagas after falling unconscious, meaning that the game is now a race against time as well. Once you rescue Ashley, the President's daughter, she becomes part of the gameplay mechanics. She comes with you and has her own health bar. Enemies tend to carry her away, which can be a huge problem when you're juggling between keeping her safe and defeating enemies. You have to balance your duties perfectly, or you can just put her in armour during subsequent playthroughs and prevent her giving you a game over completely. Unlike in previous titles in the series, Leon can collect money and use it to both purchase weapons and upgrade them. You'll want to keep your handgun upgraded for the most part as you make your way through your first playthrough because of all the obvious all-round uses of the weapon. But later on you'll probably succumb to the temptation of the meatier and less ammo-rich weapons that offer huge explosions and quicker kills. Set in Spain during 2004, they obviously used peseta... Wait, that's 2 years after the Euro came into use. Well, okay, I guess Capcom took Joseph de Crow's advice backwards. This Cockney geezer, though, he doesn't mind being paid in useless money. I guess being infected with Las Plagas does that to your mind. Wait, how does this guy make it through the Ganados anyway? You can shoot him in the head and he comes back later to sell you more junk without even mentioning it. Who is this guy? Where does he go? That's the main unanswered question in this game. He sneaks around so perfectly and at such a pace that he beats you everywhere.
That suit. Are you Foxhound?
I don't think so, stranger. Anyways, this guy is used for acquiring just about everything one would need to slaughter a small population of nutjobs. He's always got nice things for you, stranger. You'll find money hiding in boxes and the like that you can knife up to open. Money also drops from the remains of enemies occasionally. You'll also want to collect yellow herbs so that you can gradually upgrade your maximum health because you're gonna need it. Remember though, when you're buying stuff you need to have space for it too. It's not like usual where one item takes one space.
Infinite ammo.
While Leon can carry more than would be physically possible in an attaché case that he's never actually seen holding, you'll have to squeeze a physical item into a free space on a kind of grid system. Things like grenades are easy to get in, but when you start dealing with huge weapons that the dealer gives you access to, you start to feel constraint. Luckily, the thing's upgradable.
I was starting to wonder when you might notice us.
Who are you?
Me llamo Ramon Salazar, the 8th Castellan of this magnificent architecture. I have been honored with the prodigious power from the great Lord Sadler. I've been expecting you, my brethren.
No thanks, bro.
My, we've got a feisty one. If you care for your own well-being, I suggest you surrender yourself and simply become our hostage. Or Mr. Scott, you can give us the girl because you're not worth a penny, I'm afraid. You can die.
I'm never turning into one of them. Never.
Got that right. We'll find a cure.
Leon is particularly fond of gruesome deaths. Like Bubsy the Bobcat before him, Leon will die rather cartoonishly to most things. Darkly cartoonish, but still. For example, Chainsaw Dude here will really go at you for several seconds before he gets through you. You can get your face melted off with acid, spikes thrust through you, and parts of your body slapped off at every turn. You'll probably have this happen to you a lot while you work out a mini-boss's weakness. There are also quick-time events that people tend to hate. The main problem is where they come out of nowhere. There are other modes too, largely added for the PlayStation port. You can play as Ada in separate ways, which is basically what she's doing to help and hinder Leon behind the scenes, intended to be played through after the main campaign so that you know what's happening with Kennedy at the same time. Separate Ways also serves as a platform for Wesker's creepy transatlantic monotone to seek back into the series, as it was him that allegedly saved Ada from a supposed death in Resident Evil 2. Assignment Ada is another excuse to play as Leon's pretend girlfriend, but confined to the island facility area. The Mercenaries minigame allows you to play as a whole host of other characters, including Wesker and Hunk. It was an unexpected overhaul for the series, but I, like most people, seem to think that this was a good thing. This game is way more immersive in the survival aspect because you can't just close a door behind you to be safe. Most of the time the game forces you to seek out enemies or get sneak attacked. I highly recommend playing it. Resident Evil 5 is similar, but it never really got quite the same level of an impact because it wasn't a radical departure and people were too busy discussing its setting and enemies to care. Capcom did us proud with this one. What are you buying? Resident Evil 4, that's what.